What's up, guys? Welcome to the Behind the Golf Brand podcast. This week, I have my good friend Brian Mogg, world famous golf instructor to many tour players, and I'm super excited to have him on the show. Talk about his life, his career, how he got to where he's at, what he's doing now, and just kind of take you into his world. So, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
So, where are you located right now?
Well, I'm in Orlando, Florida at the moment. Spend about half our year in Orlando and half our year near Seattle. Wife and I are from the
Oh,
area.
really?
Our son lives out there. I've got an academy at Chambers Bay and
Oh,
tons of family
nice.
and friends out there throughout the year. So we definitely get out there as much as we can. And then somehow it just seems to work when the weather's good in Florida. We're here, and the weather's good out near Seattle. We're there. So that's usually the
When do you go back to Seattle? Like
Oh,
summer?
yeah, late May, early June, we'll probably head back out to Seattle, and we just got back early-ish November to Orlando, and it works out pretty good. But I've got other academies, so there's a lot of moving around and all that. But
A lot of traveling.
Seattle's fantastic when the weather's great out there.
You grew up there, didn't you?
Tacoma, Washington. So I'm from there. My wife's from there. Our son now has a job out there. He worked for Russell Wilson for quite a while out in Seattle, and
Doing
um,
what?
that's a cool part of the story. After he graduated from college, he got a job with NBC Sports, and he was on the field for Sunday Night Football with Michelle Tafoya. Kind of did Sunday Night Football bus. We're huge Seahawk fans, and after he did that for about 4 or 5 years, I think they won 4 Emmys as a team. I don't know where Russell called him and said, "I've seen some of the work you do. I want you to come out here and do it just for me." So he was part of
Holy
Russell's brand.
crap.
We're talking about brand, so he's part of Russell's brand team, and for almost 6 years, they really did a great job, and Russell had the vision to put people around him and empower them to help him with branding and commercials and endorsements and kind of non-football related stuff. And
That's
in the
cool.
process, became great friends with Russell, and we're friends with a lot of Seahawk players and just some fantastic friends out there.
I feel like Seahawk fans are like diehard fans. I don't think people realize how diehard Seahawk fans are. Like,
You snoop around our house here, you'll find tons of jerseys and 12 flags, and I think I've been to
yeah, see,
I've been to three.
it's
I
like,
think I've been to 3 games so far this year already, and they've won every
really?
game. So I guess I need to keep going.
I like the Seahawks. I remember they used to be so terrible back in the 80s and stuff. And then,
Yeah.
like, then they finally like turned it around. And it's
No, we
kind of
need to.
crappy they traded Russell away, though, to
Yeah, there's a lot of
Denver.
story behind this story, but I need to get you some of my buddies on the show with you because they are some of the biggest. Jermaine Kearse, wide receiver, had the catch in the Super
I
Bowl
remember
on his
him. I
back.
remember him.
And
That's
he's one of our
awesome.
close. He's one of our close friends. He and Brian Walters. They are like the biggest golf nuts you've ever seen. I've got a
Really?
picture.
Oh,
Do
that'd be
you remember?
awesome.
All right. Do you remember the Seahawk playoff game against Minnesota? It was 6 below about 7, 8 years ago.
I
Does that
do
ring a
remember
bell?
that. Yeah, yeah,
Blair
yeah.
Blair Walsh missed a field goal at the short distance at the very end of the game, and Seattle won. Well, after the game, I got a picture on my phone. I'm in the locker room with Jermaine. It was 6 below, and we're in the
That's so
locker
cool.
room, edge of the locker room, doing golf tips and drills with Jermaine. He brought some training
Really?
aids with him. They're waiting for Russell to do all his interview stuff. But I met Jermaine that year. I don't know how many times at games we're doing drills and swing stuff after the game in the locker room or outside the stadium, waiting for the buses to leave. And I mean, Brian
He's like, you know
Walters.
that you're like the go-to guy to give him the
No,
edge he needs. Have you given him like instructions too outside of that? Like, I bet you're making a lot of players instruction, huh? Like NFL
Uh, we
players.
just we just had Michael Vick to one of our golf schools. In fact, when I played with Brixton out in the Pebble Beach event here recently, Fred McGriff and Matt Laporta were two of they're baseball guys, but
Remember Griff? I remember him, dude. That's
mm,
old school. Did he play for like
I couldn't.
Toronto? Wait, who did he play for?
He played for
Uh,
San Diego and Atlanta
San Diego.
mostly, but I think he
Atlanta.
finished his
That's right,
career.
Atlanta.
But he just got on the Hall of Fame, and one of the cool things from a golf instruction standpoint, got to meet so many athletes and just be involved with helping their golf careers, golf games out, and all of a sudden you're buddies with guys that you could as a fan, you're drooling watching them on TV. Next thing you know, they're asking you for help with their golf game.
And there's like normal people. Like this.
They're all normal people. They may be driven a little more just because they're elite athletes, but they just Michael Vick texted me yesterday and just said, "Man, everything we worked on the school is going great. Couple more ways I can get shots lower here, but these 2 drills you gave me, I got to keep doing them. One with my putter, one with my wedge." And it's just like he's all fired up a few weeks
So
after golf
weird.
school to keep knocking. He's an 8 handicap. He wants to get down to a 2 or 3.
That's awesome. So I know the guys from True Linkswear, and they're all from that same area, like the Tacoma area. I know they do a lot of stuff in like You know those guys?
I know a little bit of them. Ryan Morse from kind of my hometown out there, and Ryan, I think,
Yeah.
is that the one company I think Ryan was
Yeah.
involved with the shoes, but
Yeah, Ryan and his brother Jason.
it's just a funny area in the context that, I've been all over the country, been all over the world. It might be the most passionate golf place in the world, meaning it could be 42 and rainy outside and the golf course is full. And my lesson schedule might be fuller out in Chambers Bay than it is in perfect weather in Florida. It's just people are really golf nuts, serious, passionate golfers out in the Northwest, which is not the perception around the country. And there's been a lot of elite tour players that have come out of that area. And Andrew Putnam's on a nice run the last several years. Ryan Morris had a great career. One of my students, Joe Highsmith, you don't probably know the name, but he'll be a rookie on tour this year. He finished 18th on Corn Ferry. You're going to hear a lot about Joe. This is one of the most talented
That's
golfers
awesome.
I've ever come across with. And they're all from Tacoma, Washington. I mean, of all places, why is there so many players from there? And it's just been fun to be a small part of that.
It's weird too. I'm an outsider, right? And I was at the Waste Management one year, and the guys from True Links were like, Ryan was playing in the Pro-Am day. And so I was texting somebody I can't remember what was, someone on his team. They're like, hey, do you want to come walk with us in the ropes? And I'm like, I was like wearing a suit and I was wearing my ball's crap. I was not planning on doing that. But I was like walking and it was him and Ches Reavy. And I went to high school with Ches. And his dad was like my boss, like my very first boss. His dad was an airline pilot. And when I got out of college, I went and worked for the airlines. And his dad was like one of my bosses. It was crazy. He actually told me to quit my job. That's what he told me to do. He told me to quit my job and become a pilot, which I did. So it's and I remember him telling me all this stuff, like, oh yeah, Ches made it the Masters, as a Pro-Am. And I was like, what? That's crazy. But it was so weird, like walking it. But it was interesting because Jordan Spieth was behind us, and I think his caddy is from the same area too, right?
Michael Greller is from the
Yeah,
area.
and they all freaking know each other. Like they all
Right.
it was like the smallest world. I was like, dude, I had no idea.
Yeah, I had one of my friend's kid was in 8th grade, and Michael was his, I want to say, science teacher is what he taught, math or science.
Seriously? Oh, that's that's right. Wasn't he a teacher and then he was wasn't he
Jordan,
instructing part-time or something?
No,
In the summer?
Jordan played in the 2011 US Junior, which was about 30, 40 minutes from Tacoma. And somehow he got hooked up with Michael as his caddy and he won the tournament. So in 2013, Jordan did 1 year at University of Texas, went to turn pro, and he got his team together and basically said, all right, we need to get you a full-time caddy. Who do you want to look at? And he goes, when I won the US Junior, I had this guy who was a high school teacher, junior high teacher. He was the best caddy I've ever had. So they approached Michael. Michael accepted whatever the offer is, and whatever it's been now, 10, 12 years later,
a lot of wins.
They've been a phenomenal team with a lot of wins, and I'm sure a lot of money as well. But they've been one of the true kind of partners in the game of golf from a player caddy standpoint the last 10 years.
I didn't know that. It was just cool, like how it's like you're saying a small world, and it's like from that same region, and like everybody's knew each other. They're like, oh yeah, we taught together, blah blah blah. Like I'm like, what the heck? I mean, I don't know. I think what you see on TV, there's like a huge backstory behind that, and a lot of these guys came up together, or know each other some other way. So you grew up in Seattle. Like, were you always good at golf, or like how'd you get into golf?
I did all the other things, played sports and was good in all of them and all that. And my funny story is I think I was in 8th grade. It was summer baseball, and I'm at the plate, and we were facing a guy that was an equivalent of throwing 100 miles an hour back then. He's just long hair and threw gas and all that. And, the curveball was just starting to happen at that time. And as I kind of took my stance and kind of waggled, got ready, I happened to cheat and looked down at the catcher who flashed a 2 sign. I was like, oh, the curveball's coming. Well, that was like a free gift. And over the next 3 or 4 pitches, I cheated each time, saw the catcher flash the sign, and knew it was coming. This guy was throwing either gas or nasty curveballs. Well, about the 4th or 5th pitch, here comes the curveball. So I'm going to, all right, stay in the box, stay in the box, stay in the box. Well, somehow between the signal being sent to the pitcher threw high cheese and about took my head off as I was trying to stay on the plate. And that was the year I got into golf. And I said, you know what? I think I'm gonna go after golf. And the funny part of the story was the very first school I did at Chambers Bay, I don't know, 2010, 2011, somewhere in that range. That pitcher was in the first golf school we did.
Shut up.
And I started laughing at him because I said, you're the reason I'm here today. And I'd never shared that story, but that led to getting into golf and, did well in junior golf. I was first team AJGA All-American the first time AJGA had their listing. and 1979. And then that led to getting a scholarship to Ohio State. Went back to school there. Eventually got to be All-American. Turned pro, and 2.5 years later, I was on the PGA Tour.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, like, did your dad play golf, or your mom? How did you choose golf?
They did a
Grandpa?
little bit. Nah, a little bit. But in that 8th grade summer, I got a birthday present. My summer's birthday's in July, and it was a little gift card for a series of lessons with a guy, a local pro in the Tacoma area. And went out and saw Glenn Malm. Great guy, and worked with him for a long, long time. And it was the coolest thing. If Glenn said do this, the ball did what it was supposed to do. And if Glenn said do that, it worked. And it was just the most fascinating thing, that how good he was, how right he was, and the results were there. And I kind of went on the acceleration.
You fell in love with it, like once you actually saw it, right? When you saw it working and you actually hitting the ball pretty far, you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is actually pretty fun.
It's ironic for what I'm doing now, but back then it was just like, okay, hey, this guy's telling me to do this. Listen to what he's saying. It works. And my parents really didn't play, but they were certainly supportive and gave us all great opportunities to pursue our dreams. And next thing you know, I'm back at Ohio State, and next thing you know, I played the Asian Tour for a couple of years, and then I got my PGA Tour card, and I did professionally golf for 9 years, kind of all over the world, and all 3 years on the PGA Tour.
So why did you choose Ohio State? Like, how did they find you?
Well,
you won that tournament.
Well, I was first team junior All-American that year, so I didn't win technically any tournaments, but I got to the quarterfinals of U.S. Junior and top 10 finishes, and it seems like every junior event I played. So coaches came out and saw me play, and it's still funny because back then, from a recruiting standpoint, the phone would ring, and all right, it's Ohio State coach calling. At first, you couldn't believe it, and then it was the Texas coaches calling, and North Carolina coaches calling. So I had some really nice choices to make, and I look back and wonder, because Texas was probably my next option, but I visited University of North Carolina, University of Miami, University
what year
of
Arizona.
Was that? And this was 1979.
Wow.
So at the time, I chose Ohio State. Hey, big tradition, Jack Nicklaus, all those kind of things. They had some really good players there. Joey Sindelar at the time, John Cook, which you'll hear about later in the story. John Cook was the reigning U.S. amateur champion there, and I had played the Ohio State course before. It's phenomenal. The facilities were phenomenal. And I thought, you know what? John Cook will be a senior my freshman year. What better way to learn from the best player in collegiate amateur golf, to be around John for a year. Joey Sindelar was a year behind him, so I was going to get 2 years with Joey. And I just felt like that was the best place for me to pursue my dreams. And unfortunately, 2 days before school started, it was the final of the U.S. Amateur, and John went to defend his title and lost to Marco Mira. Well, John turned pro the next day. So all this great plans kind of went out the window as John left school. But what the cool thing that happened is, late in that spring, Ohio State had won the NCAA, the first Northern school in a long, long time to have won the national title. So when I came in, we were defending champions. And with John having left, I got to mostly play fifth man for most of the year. But if John was there, I certainly wouldn't have done that. So
yeah, you got a lot of reps, right? You got to play.
And then we hosted the NCAA that year. So we were defending champions on our home golf course, and we were three-way tie for the lead going into the final round. And it was, Ohio State, Columbus is just nuts for sports, and to have NCAA, and it was the first year the NCAA has ever televised. I was in the next to last group playing with Bob Tway, and it was one of the more nervous situations I ever felt myself in.
So how'd you do?
I'll say we did not have a good final round. We allowed Oklahoma State to win.
It's golf. It's like baseball. That's how it goes sometimes.
Great learning opportunity.
Well, especially Ohio State, man. Like, that's like a tradition of like every sport. I mean,
now it's the Ohio State.
Yeah. I know. I went to Purdue, so cool. Like, you guys kicked our ass like every freaking year in football, like every year, and there'd be a ton of people there from Ohio State, like half the field's Ohio State fans, and then the years I was there is when Drew Brees he was a freshman, and then he started, and we started winning, and I was like, holy crap, this is what it's like to be at a college. You start winning stuff. It was awesome. I don't have any problems with Ohio State. One of my good friends is an Ohio State guy, and he always goes back every year to go to football games, even still from Arizona. But what happened this weekend?
I mean, nothing you
No
can say.
comment.
The only
The
thing,
only game that matters all season, pretty much, right?
yeah, the only thing that matters, and give a shout out, but the Michigan quarterback just had more experience than the Ohio State quarterback, and
Yeah.
he didn't make a mistake. And unfortunately, the Ohio State guy threw an interception in the first quarter that was probably a difference in the game. And I'd like to see
I love watching Big Ten football though, man. Like honestly, I would rather watch Big Ten football than
well,
anything.
get ready because it's next year. It's no longer. It's still the Big Ten, but it's not really the Big Ten. I
I
happen to
know.
see the schedules come out next year, and it doesn't even look right anymore.
Like, what is it?
Well, I just happened to look at Washington's schedule for 2024, and they open with Northwestern at home, then they go at Rutgers, come back to Michigan at home, then they go at Iowa, and it's this back and forth, home and away, the whole year, and then their
It's changed so
rivalry.
much, man, the last 5 years, 10 years. Like before it used to be like, this is the Pac-12 or the
Yep.
Pac-10 or whatever it was. And this is the Big Ten. Everyone had their conference, and like you were loyal to your conference.
Yeah.
And then the bowl game would be like that conference versus this conference, the two best teams or whatever. And now it's just like I don't even know who's in what conference anymore, to be quite honest. Like,
yeah, the problem is going to eventually be though that you've got Ohio State, Michigan 11-0, you've got Georgia and other teams SEC 11-0. When you have the Texas and Oklahomas coming into the SEC, you've now got Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA going in the Big Ten. Nobody's going to go 11-0 or 12-0 anymore. There's just too much competition going to happen. So you go 10-2 in your conference right now. That might be like the winning team because there's just too much talent and depth going on across the board. But I don't know. We'll see.
that's crazy. So okay, so you graduated from the Ohio State.
Correct.
I will make sure I said that correctly.
Yes.
I went to the Purdue University, which is a lot smaller. And what happened then?
One of the first things I did, Joey Sindelar, who's been a friend forever now. Joey came out of college, didn't get his tour card, and he went and played the Asian tour. So one of Joey's recommendation was go play the Asian tour. I didn't know what that meant. I'd never really been out of the country, but I graduated in January the next year, went and played 10 weeks in Asia, and it was phenomenal.
Like, where do you play in Asia on the Asia tour?
Back then, there was 10 countries in 10 or 11 weeks. So we started in the Philippines, and we went to Hong Kong. I still remember the whole thing. Then we went to Malaysia, and then we went to Thailand, then India.
It was like
Singapore.
awesome, right? Like you'd be 23 years old.
Yeah, each country is different. Each experience was different. Each food was different. Each golf course was different. But in hindsight, got to play with some of just the cool guys of the world. I mean, in hindsight, I played several rounds with VJ back then, who was just this tall, skinny kid from Fiji hitting a big hook. Well, that's not the VJ we know today. He was buffed out and basically played a power cut shot his whole life, and Hall of Fame golfer, which back then you never thought, well, that's going to happen. And to play golf with a bunch of the Australians of the world, the Ian Baker Finches, Roger Davises, you went from college right into that environment, and to not maybe do the mini tour stuff as much to get kind of international experience was just fantastic learning. Just be exposed to so many
the talent
things.
level too, the international talent level, right?
International. I mean, you just didn't appreciate how much stereotype Asian golfer got the ball in the hole. Maybe it wasn't with an American looking swing, but chipping, putting, wedging, managing their game, managing how they shot their score. It was just so positive and such a fantastic learning experience. And if you remember TM Chen, who almost won the 85 US Open, I mean, he was a guy that was playing full time back then over in Asia. And last event was always in Japan. You get to play with some of the top Japanese golfers. 5 or 6 years later, I got paired with Seve one year in Japan. I mean, so there are things that you just didn't always get to do on the U.S. tour. And I'd almost say in hindsight, it was a little more fun playing the Asian tour just because, I mean, Hong Kong, it's a cool city and you're out walking around at night and seeing all the different sights and people and all that. And when you would go out to dinner, it'd be like you'd grab 3 Americans, maybe 1 Canadian, a British, a Mexican guy, 2 Asian guys, 8 of you or 10 of you be at some restaurant all hanging out together. There was no money list. There was no hierarchy of who's doing good or bad. It was just, you're just out guys having dinner.
It's like being college again, right? It's just like everyone's doing the same thing, trying to go to the next level, and you're not in that. You're in a competitive environment, but you're not, right? Like it's equals. Like not,
right?
oh,
But the PGA Tour's got such a hierarchy to it that, as a rookie, I didn't have the guts to go up to Tom Watson and say, "Can I take you out to dinner and pick your brain?" Asia, you just went out and you were friends with everybody, so there was a little different
crazy.
context of all that.
So you did a year of that. So you did, or in that
I
first
did
year
two. I
out, you
did
went.
2 years. I did 2 years of the Asian tour, and at the end of the second year, I went to Q school and got my tour card. Finished sixth at the finals of Q school, and 23 or 4 years old, I'm starting to play on the PGA Tour.
What year was that?
1986.
What was your first tournament?
Bob Hope. Now it's called the Amex in Palm Springs, but first hole I made 20, 30 footer for birdie. So I birdied my first hole on the tour, shot 69 my opening round, and ended up shooting 11 under par for the week. Finished about 40th, but I think
Hey, that's
I, I,
the
I tied Freddie. I think I beat Greg Norman by one. Lanny Watkins was right there. I mean, I look back and later on and said, "Wow, pretty good start for your first week right out of the box."
And you're like getting people's radars too. I'm like, hey, who's this guy? Right? You're not like deep in the pack.
I got bombarded. I pulled into Phoenix in the parking lot the next week, and man, just pulled in, and you could see about 25 caddies go, "That's Mogg. He played good last week." And I'm driving the car into park, and 25 guys are running at me, all wanting to get a bag that week.
It's such a different. It was a different time, wasn't it, than it is now?
Well, I mean, 100% yes. It's just it was so much more lower scale back then than it is today.
And the money, right? The pots, the money is like crazy high compared to what it was back then.
Well, I got $2,000 for my 40th place finish. That I don't know what's that going to be worth today. Probably 25 grand or something like that.
So then, what did you play the tour the whole season then? That whole first.
So I played the tour the whole year, and first month was not bad. I played good at the Bob Hope, and a couple of weeks later at Torrey Pines, I was in the next to last group playing with Zinger, and Zinger birdied the ninth hole, and I was 3 behind him with 9 to play, and
got a chance.
Had a chance. Was a little out of my element. Didn't shot 38 or 9 on the back 9, so I finished about 20th. But phenomenal learning. And back then, you didn't have like a Corn Ferry tour where you could learn as you go, kind of on the road, traveling and week to week to week to week. And I basically burned myself out. Played too much. Didn't know how to use my time very well, and really didn't have a very good year.
It's stressful, isn't it, too? Because you're trying to like. I mean, when you're back then, I don't know. I know it's different now, but like, did you have to pay your entries, or did you have like, how did that work back then? I have no idea.
Well, back then there was $100 entry fee for the tour. If you to play an event, you had to show up, write a check, enter, give your goodie bag, etc. Today you don't have an entry fee anymore. Champions Tour does, but regular tour there's no entry fee at all.
So then how'd you get around? You fly over, or did you have to drive a lot because you weren't making all that much money?
Well, you
whatever.
Some weeks you flew, some weeks you drive. You try to draw a balance between. You got to make the cut. Thankfully I had other sponsors that were helping things out behind the scenes, but every week is different. I mean, you somewhat have to balance that. Well, it's too far to drive, and I need to fly, so I'm not exhausted. But sometimes it's just too expensive to fly.
Yeah, I can't afford it. I'm always driving.
Right.
So then, when how many years did you play on the tour?
So I lost my card that first year and just missed getting it back. So I went back and did the Asian tour thing the next year, and I think I finished 25th or something, the Asian tour. Came back, went to Q school that next fall, and re-qualified for the PGA Tour. So now I'm back on the tour again. I think I've learned all my mistakes, learned all the things I didn't do very well. I'm ready to rock and roll. And I started out, missed every cut for the first 3 months and wasn't very close. And took some time off, didn't get into some tournaments, made a whole lot of change, et cetera, et cetera. It's a longer story than this, but I came back and finished second the very next week.
What did you change?
Everything.
Sure
everything.
Oh, that much? Yeah, you changed that much.
It was a lot of change went on, and not just only on the golf side, because when you talk about stress, so much of the stress in playing the tour is self-induced stress. I mean, humbly said, golf is just a game. It is a game of get the ball from point A to point B. But all of a sudden, when you're making it life and death, and all of a sudden this is bigger than that, the smallest flaw in your technique gets crazy exposed. And the separation on tour, even as we watch it more so today, the separation is much more physical, much more mental than it is physical. Everybody on tour, even back then, was still a really good player. and they're almost great today, but back then everybody was still a really good player. The separation is much more in how people think than how it is in their technical side. And that was really what I was fighting the most, was more the mental side of putting self-induced stress pressure. And golf is such a big thing. And there's just so many things that have helped me tremendously now as a teacher from the mistakes I made, not understanding at 24, 5, 6, 7 years old, perspective on what's important, what's not important, what should I be focused on, what works, what doesn't work. And I would love to have had a conversation with myself today back then.
Yeah, you needed you back then, right?
Yeah,
Somebody like you
right.
to be like, look, dude, this is how it is.
Right. And
And then
there was very little coaching going on back then. It just nobody's really a coach back in the day, and it wasn't. One of my mentors, Kenny played on the Ryder Cup team, won 3 times on tour. He's from Tacoma, Washington, and I don't know how many phone calls I wore Kenny's ear out, just trying to get as much advice as I could, just because Kenny had been there, a long time before.
because nobody understands, right? You can't like you don't have an equal that'd be like they would understand what you're going through, unless like you just don't.
No,
I mean, unless
it's so easy to say, well, just let the putt go. Come on, just relax and hit it. I mean, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, intellectually that's the correct answer, but it's hard to just let it go. Well, hey, if I can do this with my hand, or if I can think this thought, I can help it go in better. It's a very fine line to draw between how much thought is too much thought, how much is getting in your way versus being productive. And I've learned so much in the 30 years since I've been off the tour, that it's something that's really made it easy-ish to help other students and other younger players going through their careers, trying to get them off the ground, just because I know exactly what they're feeling. I know what kind of the danger signs are, and really some of the ways you have to fix them.
I mean, which you've done amazing in your teaching career, all the people you've helped and what they've done. I mean, it just shows you that like had you, who knows what would have happened, right? Somebody that kind of
Well,
skill level and understanding and technical skill too.
well, I'm very fortunate that my background in becoming a top teacher was rooted in playing. It's really not maybe the typical
You
background.
earned it. Yeah, you earned your stripes, right? It wasn't
Yeah,
like you just started teaching at some place and that was it.
right. And I was very fortunate. I had some fantastic mentors over the year. David Ledbetter and Mike Adams are probably my 2 biggest mentors that have allowed me to kind of learn underneath them and kind of shape my philosophy and what I think is really important. But to have had that the difficult training from kind of getting beat up on the PGA Tour to what works, what should work, what are the keys, and blend that with some really good technical information, that's just been a very valuable bonus enhancer for my career teaching wise.
So then when you came back and won it or got in second, you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is what I was missing. So then how long did you continue playing on tour after that? And how'd you do?
Um, I finished out that year, and at the very end of the year, just missed keeping my tour card. So same thing, had to go back to Q school. Um, didn't qualify.
Again?
Oh yeah. Q schools. You could do a year-long topic on Q school. That's how crazy this is.
Is it the
Anyway,
same now or is it different now?
well, up until right at the moment, it's been different for about the last 10 years, and there really has not been a Q school to get on the tour. But in about 2 weeks, the Corn Ferry Tour has the finals of Q school, but the top 5 finishers get their PGA Tour card for next year. So I have 2 Corn Ferry students that, one had a very solid year, just missed getting his card. One guy, really good player, they're in the finals. Well, if they don't finish top 5, it doesn't really matter. They're playing Corn Ferry next year. But if they go top 5, they're going directly to the PGA Tour.
That's awesome.
So to kind of finish where you were going with the question, 3 consecutive years, I either lost by 1 or lost in a playoff into the finals of Q school. Therefore, I mean, it's
back from start all over again.
But imagine a plumber having to go to plumber Q school, and X amount of people try, and only this percentage get through it. That's what Q school is. Typically 2, 3, 4,000 people send their entry fee in and try, and out of it, used to be about 25 to 50 people would get their tour card. Now it's much more of a qualifying through the Corn Ferry Tour, but there is a system where they've gone back to a little bit of potential to play the PGA Tour. And after I did 3 straight years of either missing by 1 stroke or in a playoff, Ledbetter called me and said, "Hey, would you ever want to consider teaching with me? Love to have you on our team." And deep down, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep playing. I'm so close. I'm so close. But it was
Yeah.
just kind of from a family standpoint, and let me get my life balance. Let me see what David
How
suggested.
old were you?
So
Like 30 at that time then?
I'm gonna say 31,
It's
and
like you probably starting your family and you're kind of like,
I think child number two is on the way, if I remember about that
yeah,
time
and
frame.
like
And it was
I
just
know
like
it's that age too. It's like it's time to grow up, right? Like I had that
uh,
conversation too with myself.
I don't
Like
know.
I was 30 when I went to law school. I was like, all right, I gotta get a job. Like,
Yep, yep.
so it's like, yeah, I know, I get it.
It
And
was a very difficult first year because you had to be a gopher, which means you got there at 5:30 or 6 and did all the range stuff to get ready for all the teachers and David to do their things, and then you had to wait throughout the whole day and then clean everything up again. And in between, you were training and taking notes and going through all kind of training stuff. But for a year to 2 years, in hindsight, it was like kind of like watching Bill Gates on a computer. I mean, David was the man, and David's ability to diagnose golf swings and using kind of early technology, just really TVs, computers back then was brilliant to watch, and feel very privileged to kind of learned underneath someone that was so good at what he did. And it's mostly the foundation for where I'm at today, is watching how David analyzed golf swings and showed us, here's what's going on, here's why it's happening. And that's, to me, what's made David one of your elite all-time teachers, his ability to teach the why, not, hey, your head's moving, hey, you're coming over the top. That's easy for everybody to see, but why is that happening? And really, the biggest benefit I had from David being my coach for a very long time while on tour, and then working forward underneath him for about 10 more years, I'm really good at diagnosing why things happen. And that's, if you don't fix the root of the problem, you're just putting band-aids on it. So you always want to get to the root of why is this happening. And you will always get results. Might not happen instantaneously, but if you nip away at the root cause of your problems, you're going to become a better golfer.
yeah, you're finding a solution to the root core, not a peripheral, like, oh, I can fix this by doing this other thing. It's like, no,
Hmm.
like, what's the
Yep.
problem?
Yep.
So then, in other words, like, he was mentoring you, right? Like, you were being mentored for
Yeah,
in
but
that way by seeing it through
yeah,
osmosis, I
he
guess,
was,
in a
but
way.
I mean, he was running a business at the same time, so a
Of
lot of it
course.
was all kind of like life was going really fast, and you're sitting there watching David on a computer or TV screen dissecting golf swings. And by the end of year two, I was helping him with his golf skills. I think by year three, I was running his golf schools with him, and that's when it really got good because guys were paying a lot of money. David was at just the top of everyone's list back then, and I'm in the video room taking notes for each student, watching. I said, it's like watching Bill Gates on a computer. Watch David dissect a swing, and having no
You're
clue
starting
what
to
I was
learn. You're starting to
doing.
see the same things now
All of
because
a
it's right
sudden,
there in front of you.
all of a sudden he's opening my eyes to, okay, wow, that club face is really open. I didn't know what that meant. Or wow, it's really off plane. Or your reason your head's moving because your grip is in your palm,
It's
which
not
is
just
not letting you do
words,
it.
right?
It's not
It's like
just
you
words.
see. Yeah.
So it really was a challenging but fun time to kind of get, in the middle of him running a business, we're all learning and becoming better teachers. And that first year, David hired, I want to say maybe 6 to 8 to 10 teachers to put in place as he put his academies in all over the place. And, of the 6 people in Orlando, I want to say four of us 6 became top 100 teachers within, I don't know, not that much time. And that's just, David did a great job picking people, and, guys were really good at what they did, and, still friends today with it.
So then, have you always lived in Orlando then, outside of that, or you were moving
So
around
in
a
the
lot?
late '80s, trying to play the tour from Tacoma, Washington was not much of an option. I mean, there were no nonstop flights like Seattle, because of Microsoft and Amazon, all the big companies there. You can kind of go nonstop anywhere in the U.S. pretty much now, but back then, I remember missing the
Microsoft
cut.
wasn't even anything. There was nothing
No,
there.
no, I missed the cut one year in Boston. I was just so frustrated, so mad. I'm like, I'm going home. Well, I couldn't get out Friday night, so I had to fly out Saturday morning, and the next week was in Milwaukee. Well, I had to leave Saturday morning, and to get to Milwaukee to play a practice round, I had to leave Monday morning. It was like $1,800 to go from Boston to Seattle to Milwaukee just to be home for, I don't know, a day and a half. And with Ledbetter kind of being my coach in Orlando, we also had multiple friends in Orlando, a lot of Ohio State friends. You know what? We're getting an apartment in Orlando. So 32 years later or something, our kids were born in Orlando, and and
I like Orlando.
all our roots are in here, and it's been fantastic.
There's a lot of really good schools there too, like golf schools, like a lot.
There,
Yours,
there's,
others.
there are a lot of schools. There are a lot of schools here.
So then, like, how long did you work for Ledbetter then? 10 years?
So I worked for David right at 10 years, and in 2002, I had an opportunity to spin off and start my own academy at a course 5 minutes from my house at a Nicholas facility, and that turned out to be a brilliant move as well. I stayed there for just under 10 years, and then I left that private club to join the Waldorf Astoria, which is a 5-star resort, kind of right in the
I've been
edge
there.
or in the heart.
I believe
Yeah,
it's
it's
nice.
phenomenal. It's really nice. 5-star resort right in
That's
Mount Disney.
really nice. Like that's like really nice. I was at a thing like Fujikura had a thing at the range like during PGA show. Or it was the back part of the range or something. I don't know where it was. It was private. I had to drive down like some like treed road forever, and then it was at the end. That's all I remember. It was a long ass walk.
That wouldn't be the Waldorf, but there's a couple of places I can think it might have been. But PGA shows in Orlando in late January, so they do all kinds of extra things.
I could have sworn it was at Waldorf. I could have sworn. I don't know.
No.
I remember walking down a path to go. It wasn't even a ranger. I don't even know what it was. It was something. It was So then have you been there this whole time then? Is that
I've been there for 11, 12 years now at the Waldorf, and one of my kind of add-on things in 2009, Wai Yang was one of my students, and Wai beat Tiger in the PGA, kind of the first guy to ever take Tiger down from
I thought you're like I remember that.
Being behind him, and won a major. I think first Asian male to ever win a major, and a lot of opportunities kind of spun off of that because that accelerated the Chambers Bay, having an academy at Chambers Bay. We were already talking before then, but that kind of accelerated that. I now have an academy in Honolulu, and then I've had one in Korea for almost the same time. So there's a lot of fun going on.
So how many do you have right now?
There's 5. Toronto's the other one. I've been spending a lot of time in Toronto for the last 25 years. Made some of my best friends in life were up in Canada. And one of my really good friends did very, very well, and he built his own private club just north of Toronto. And thankfully, he continues to have me up there every year. I've become friends with all the members, and kind of Toronto and north of Ontario is just one of the most prettiest places in the summer of all time.
Looks pretty up there. Yeah, I've been there before. My family lives in what's the name of that town? Like just east of Toronto. Oh, it's a big city. I can't think of the name of it.
East of Toronto? Now it's going up the river. Not many people live.
Or not east, it's west. It's like
west is back towards Buffalo. Well, east is technically towards Buffalo. It's kind of hooked down and around the corner.
Crap. I can't remember the name of it. I was just there for a wedding like a couple years ago.
West is technically London. And then Hamilton is west, which is where
Hamilton. That's where they live. They live in Hamilton.
Good.
Is that west?
Technically, it's west. That's where the Canadian Open will be this year. Hamilton Country Club.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
That might be my favorite course in Canada. It's usually in the top 5. Yeah, well, it's just tough, fair, old school. Everything a golf course should be for being a challenge and fun at the same time.
So are you traveling around all the academies, or how does that work?
Travel to a lot of academies. I do a lot of outings for companies. I've got several tour students, so there ends up being a lot of travel. I mean, more heavily in the summer than anything else, but
it's slowing down right now because of winter, or not really? Because all the academies are taking off.
But now it goes the other way. So now all these people you've seen all throughout the summertime are going, it's 30 degrees and starting to snow outside. I'm going to Florida. Where's Brian going to be? I got to find him wherever he's at. And kind of, it makes for being in good weather for most of the year for what I'm doing.
So I guess what's the biggest way for people to find you? Like, do they just most of these tour players want to go with you? I know you're on a Champions Tour too, right? You did that.
Yeah, I've played 9 championship events over the last maybe 6 years or so, but I would love to do more. But status wise, I got to do my hard work to get into the events. But at Mogg Academy, that's my social media stuff. I'm doing videos every day. My son now he's doing other fun stuff. He's not working for us anymore, but I've hired him to do all my social media. I love making videos and giving kind of free content out and watching people enjoy their game that way. My email is brian@moggacademy.com. Reach out, plug in the schedule. I'll try to make a spot for you.
Yeah, you're busy though. You're a busy man. Like, you got a lot going on. You've all like, I mean, how many tour players are helping right now, would you say?
Well, my cool statement is since 2001, I've had 30 wins by students on the PGA or LPGA Tour. That kind of includes Korn Ferry and Champions Tour, but I've had 30 wins in 2 majors by students. So when you ask how many professionals I'm teaching, there's a lot. Technically, it's the one guy who's going to be on the PGA Tour in January and a couple of guys on Korn Ferry. But there's, I don't know, I couldn't even tell how many more there are playing various mini tours or going overseas or trying to go through Q school. And, some of them are going to make it. I also have a ton of kids in college right now that are elite D1 players. I mean, one kid's at Duke, a couple of Big Ten players, West Coast players. I mean, I've got one kid that slipped through the cracks. He kind of went into the transfer portal his first year, really good player. And no one's signed him yet. They need to sign him.
Really?
So that's
the hard part, right? To get signed or let people see you.
Well, one of the dirty secrets that's gone on is COVID really wreaked havoc, at least in the golf world, from a standpoint that the scholarships all got extended. So if you're on, hypothetically, if you're going to be finished in 2021, that scholarship or that spot on the team got extended to 2022. So now the coaches are trying to recruit incoming kids while at the same time having to extend kids on the program. One of the tough challenges is both financially and emotionally is you don't want more than about 8, 9, maybe 10 kids on the team. So you've got to balance all these things out. So a lot of kids, not just a couple of my students, but a lot of kids have gone through some really tough stuff because there's no room. Scholarships are promised. Now they've got to extend them and all that. And I think next year is the first year you'll kind of have non-COVID impact on men.
It'll be cleaned up. Yeah, it's starting to
be cleaned up. It's nobody's fault. Yeah. That's just the byproduct of what happened from all of that. So
all the delays.
Really, I don't know that it happened in the other sports, but golf, it's really hurt with. I had one very elite junior player that I think could have played it, and he was recruited by the Stanfords and some of the top 5 programs out there, but he finally ran into a wall that the schools just didn't have room to be adding players. And he's now at a D1
what do they do
school.
in that situation? Like, do they have to go to junior college, or they just what do you do? I have no idea.
This particular kid took a lower offer. It's still a D1 school, but his talent level is much higher than where he's at. And it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. And so often when you hear on the PGA Tour, just play better. I mean, that's the antidote here. Is whether it's this kid or somebody else, you play better. Your other teams will find you. Other opportunities will happen. So this kid will be fine. He's a stud. He's going to be a bigger stud, and just has to work through all the.
How did YE Yang find you? Was that from your school at Chambers Bay, or
no? There's a LPGA player, Mi-hyun Kimmy. Kimmy's about 5'1", and we worked from maybe 2002 through about 2008, and Kimmy hit the ball at best about 220 off the tee. She had a heart that was just ginormous. She would take down, golfers hitting the ball. She won the biggest ladies tournament at the time. I don't remember what year it was, 05 maybe. Largest $2 million purse for the ladies. And she's paired with Laura Davies the first 2 days. And Laura was truly out hitting her by 100 yards. And Kimmy would take her 5 wood or 7 wood or 9 wood and hit it to 5 or 10 feet repeatedly. And by late on Friday's round, Laura Davies finally just threw her hands up there. How are you doing this? How are you? I'm having a wedge to the green. I can't get my wedge inside your 5 wood. And Kimmy would win the tournament. And I don't know, that was maybe her 4th or 5th win when we worked together. And in 2008, her caddy, Jason, basically got hired away by YE to come onto the PGA Tour as a rookie. And 2 months into the season, I get a phone call from Jason that said, YE's never had an American coach. He's never really had a coach at all. We'd be interested in meeting with him. And at the time, Jokum means little bit in Korean. I didn't have that. And YE's English wasn't very good either. And over the next year and a half, it was some of the best coaching I've ever done because we couldn't communicate verbiage-wise. He had an agent that was awesome, and when he was around, he was great at translating. But basically, if I said, hey, do this with the club, I would have to mimic doing it, and then, all right, your turn, you do it. Show them video. No, Jawa means good. No Jawa, no Jawa, Jawa. So you'd learn these little words, and then you'd mimic doing it. And in 2008, YE, he made about 400,000 for the year, and if I remember right, he made about 20 cuts out of about 28 events. I made a lot of cuts, but he
That's
never
amazing.
really had a good finish. Well,
He didn't get the money though, right? He made the cut, but he didn't quite
he
make the
stood
money.
super, super erect with a very strong grip, rolled it inside with a shut face. So in the middle of his rookie year on tour, with his permission, we changed his grip to a neutral grip. We got his posture into more athletic posture. We got his swing plane for him, which felt much more upright, his club face from closed to
He's like, "What the
square.
hell is this?"
And he truly worked his butt off. He really did a phenomenal job of making changes, and I felt bad because he can't communicate what he's feeling. I can't communicate what I'm trying to see happen. And I went out to a lot of tournaments that year, and he's finishing 36th and 44th and 29th. Probably did okay financially to break even or something, but it looks like he's going nowhere. Well, he went back to Q school. On the final hole at Q school, he made a 6-foot putter. We're not having this conversation right now. So I met him out on the West Coast in early January. We had 1 week at Torrey Pines where we kind of kept doing things. Next week, we're up at Pebble Beach on Monday on the practice day. And we had one of those epiphany, I found it moments. His caddy and I and YE were all standing there. And we all kind of looked at each other like, all this work we've been doing for almost a year just clicked in. Like everything. You could just see all the work he had
all
put
the pieces
in.
went ding ding ding. They all like fell into
Ding, ding,
place
ding,
on
ding,
it.
ding, ding, ding,
Yeah,
ding.
yeah, like a puzzle. It's all like all collected right there. You're like,
That's right. So he finished about 20th that week, went down the next week and finished 20th at LA or wherever it
a
was.
lot to go down that
So
much, like in 2 weeks, to like go from 40 to 20.
no, well,
like,
he had something like back-to-back 20th place finishes. Nothing crazy special, but not bad. So the next week was Honda PGA National. And late Tuesday afternoon, the same thing. It's the caddy, the player, caddy YE and me. We're walking around the back nine, and I remember having this weird vibe, like it's clicking. Everything we've been working on, it's there. And if I said, "Hey, 6-iron, back right pin, hit the fade," he did it. Driver, low drop the left side, he did it. It was just kind of this, like, wow. He's not a rookie because he was like 35 years old. He's a veteran international player. But I said, all these changes are kicking in. He's going to go win one of the next 4 or 5 events. Meaning like, right before the Masters or something. Well, after Friday, he took the lead. After Saturday, he had a 1-shot lead. This is a cool story. So
I love this. Is great.
I had come back to Orlando by then, and I debated about driving back down Sunday morning to be with him for the final round. And I thought, you know what? We've put everything in place. We don't need to make this bigger than it is. Let's just trust him to do what's right. So his final round tee time, 12:45. 12:35, my phone rings. And I look down, it says YE Yang. And I'm thinking, like, there's got to be a mistake here.
Like, oh crap, he's calling. This is not good.
and it was his agent Michael on the phone. He goes, if you've been to PGA National, it's got a driving range that's, who knows, 500 yards wide by 400 yards long. I mean, it's just this phenomenal, huge field. And his exact words were, "YE is so nervous he couldn't sleep at all last night, and he can't hit the ball. He can't find the range right now. You got anything for him?" As a coach, it was like the ultimate on the spot moment. Like, what are you going to say? What can you say? And Michael was good because he could translate everything. And I said, Michael, he's on the tee. He goes, "I know. He just left the putting green. Hand me the phone." He said, "Call Brian, see if he's got any last minute help for me." So I gave him an answer. And as I hung up the phone, I remember going, that was the stupidest thing you could have told him. That was so dumb. So all you can do is watch the internet until it came on live on NBC. Well, he birdies 3 of the first 5 holes, goes to a 4-shot lead, from 1 to a 4-shot lead. He finally comes to the 18th hole with a 2.5 foot putt to win the tournament by 1 and makes it. And he runs around the green, high-fiving all the fans. It was cool. And then Roger Mulvey walks up and sticks a mic in his face and says, "Your first win in America. How did this happen?" I was so nervous last night, I couldn't sleep. I got to the range this morning, and I couldn't even find the range. I couldn't even make contact. I was just so nervous. So I'm walking on the first tee. I called my coach, Brian Mogg, and he reminded me to walk, talk, think, swing at the same cadence. So I got on the first hole, and I just tried to walk and move in a smooth fashion. I birdied 3 of the first 5 holes. I can't believe I won the tournament. And I literally was standing up watching it live, the interview, and I virtually fell down because 4 hours before this, I'm going, well, this is the stupidest answer I've ever given anybody. And 4 hours later, he's blabbing it on national TV. What a brilliant answer it was. And it's been a good testimony for me, just because when you are nervous, don't speed up, don't slow down. It's not just your golf swing. Walk, talk, think, swing at the same flow. And here he is. He wins the golf tournament. So that
It's
was
like to remember all those things, right? Instead of thinking all the million, like you said earlier, like all the things you have to think about. It's like just think about that thing only. Like
right. So that was early in 2009 when that happened. And he continued to play solid golf. And I went up for the PGA at Hazeltine that year. And it was the same weird vibe. We're going down. I was there for the Tuesday and Wednesday practice rounds. He's just striping it on Tuesday. And funny story. I'll give you the answer first before I tell you what happened. But uh, uh, as I'm leaving late Wednesday, I bumped into Brandel Chambly in the parking lot right next to the Golf Channel trailer. And Brandel said, "Hey, who's your pick this week? Who's playing?" Well, I said, "Well, I just got off the course with YE. He's playing about as good as I've ever seen him play it. He'd be somebody that's probably going to finish in the top 10 or top 20 this week." Brando would later go on to say, I said he was going to win. I didn't say that. I just said he's going to finish top. He's playing that good. So he goes into a production meeting, and Frank Nobilo walks in the door. And he goes, "Mogg just predicted why he's going to come close to winning the tournament this week." Well, 40 minutes before that, we're on the 16th hole, and you have to walk down this path from 15 down a hill out to 16, which is one of the more iconic holes in the whole U.S. It's par 4. I don't remember the name of the lake, but you kind of walk into the lake. You then tee off back away from the lake over a river, and then your second shot goes back out to a peninsula in the lake. So it's typically a 3-wood 6-iron type hole, but the wind's howling. It can be a driver. If it's downwind, it's a wedge or something. But YE has striped it for Tuesday and Wednesday practice rounds. It's late in the day. It's 4:30, 5 o'clock. And Nobilo happens to just come out of nowhere and walk down the path with me. How you doing? How's YE doing? Man, he's doing great. Everything's good. Looking forward to a good week with him. YE gets up on the tee with his 3-wood. Was playing a practice round with KJ. And he cold tops it 20, 30 yards in front of the tee. And he turned around to look at me. And as a coach, you're kind of cringing, like, what was that? He looked at me and just started busting out laughing because we knew
it's
how
like when
well
you tell people your kid's good at something. Oh, yeah, my kid's really good at that. And then they
right.
and you're like, I didn't say that.
So we're kind of laughing about it. Well, unbeknownst, this is where Nobilo goes in there. And Brandon goes, "Mogg says why he's going to come close to winning this week." And Nobilo goes, "I just watched him top it 30 yards off the tee." But short of the story, he played very well. He was in the final group with Tiger the last round. Very nervous. He never even met Tiger at that point. And then he took him down. And one small, if you want more story here.
I love the story. No, keep it up. This is awesome. I love this.
I could go on for hours with stories. So anyway,
I want to take you to a bar.
on Wednesday, I'm in the locker room, and I just, for whatever reason, I happen to read all the, the PGA Tour or PGA America puts up all the, I don't know,
standings.
No, but they'll put up like, okay, the tee marker is going to be up on number 3, or the tees are going to be here. They just put up some rules, some hole information. And I just happened to read that on the 14th hole, they're going to move the tee up on the weekend. The 14th hole is about a 380, 390 uphill par 4. So in the practice round, late Wednesday afternoon, right before the Nobilo story I just told, we come to the 13th hole, and YE and KJ hit their 3-woods or whatever from the back tee to lay it up short of the bunker. And I said, "Hey guys, if you didn't see the memo, they're going to move the tee up on the weekend. Why don't we hit one from this tee over here?" And I remember they lasered it. It was 330. And YE got up there and just nuked a driver, kind of landed into the front of the green at one hop, went up over the back where the gallery would be, and up in a nasty downslope position. We didn't think anything about it. So flash forward to Sunday. YE and Tiger are now tied, coming to 14. Nobody's really even close for third place, I don't think. So it's a 2-man game. Well, we get up on 14, and YE, just from watching him swing it, he didn't rip a driver like he did in the practice round where he thought he had to rip it to drive the green. He smoothed it, hit a nice shot, and it caught an upslope about 10 yards short of the green, between kind of a upslope and the bunker on the right center just off the green. And I think Tiger hit it in the bunker. YE holds the little pitch shot.
Shut up.
No, I mean, in hindsight, I'd like to think if I hadn't caught the memo and all that, we wouldn't have done that, and he wouldn't have made two, and potentially wouldn't have won the tournament. But why he dunks his little 15 to 20 yard little pitch shot up the slope. Tiger was clutch and made about a 10-footer for birdie, so it was a one-shot lead, and it stayed one shot through the next four holes. And they came to the 18th hole, really good par four, dog leg left. Tiger drove it far enough right that he was very far from the hole. And why he had this four hybrid in his bag. And from TV camera, it looked like he headed over this tree right in front of him. It really wasn't quite that dramatic. But Tiger missed the green just off the left edge, one down. Why he hits this hybrid over these trees to about 5 feet. I mean, just truly one of the great shots in the history of major championship golf.
The shots in your mind that you remember for the rest of your life, like you can see that shot.
Well, and so Tiger basically has to chip in now, and he doesn't do it. Why he makes the putt, why he wins by 3. And if you remember why he walked behind the green, he had a big TaylorMade bag, and he held it up over his head. Very iconic thing he did after he won that.
I do remember
First Asian male to win a major, and to have a small piece of the help going into what made that happen has probably been the highlight of my teaching career.
You like you taught a lot of people. Like, how many lessons have you given? A lot, right?
People have tried to. I wouldn't know because I don't really. I help people. I don't add up lessons and all that. You want to hear another cool story to go along with this?
Oh yeah, I want to hear a lot of cool stories.
All right, so that about. Oh man, I could tell long stories right now, but
I don't care. Whatever.
All right, so we got about 2 or 3 more tournaments after the PGA back then, and then it went into the FedEx playoffs. And we're standing at Boston, which I think was the second playoff thing. And I said something away, and I says, "Well, you do know you're going to play Tiger in singles on Sunday in the President's Cup." "How do you know that?" Because that was the week after the FedEx thing. And I said, "Well, Mike Weir happened to play him in singles and finals in Montreal last year." I said, 2 years ago, you're probably going to get Tiger on Sundays. You better be ready for his energy, 6-7 weeks from now. Okay. So FedEx playoffs go on. I don't remember how Wade did, but he finished 10th on the money list or points list or whatever it probably was by the end of the year. And sure enough, Sunday night, why he had gotten hot. I think he won 3 points going into Sunday, yet the U.S. was up 3.5 points going into Sunday. So if you're Fred Couples, where would you put Tiger 1 through 12 with a 3.5 point lead? Where would you plug Tiger in?
Exactly what you said. He's probably going to be played against him.
Well, no, but Greg Norman, the captain's got to turn his lineup in. Where's Greg going to put Hawaii? Where's Fred going to put Tiger?
I have no idea.
Well, common sense would be you'd put Tiger maybe 1 or 2 or 12. You front load him and get this thing over with, or maybe put him at the back end as a reserve if you need the clutch point. Well, if you're Greg Norman, where are you going to put YE? He's gotten you 3. He's gotten you about 3 points so far. So
probably
somewhere in the front.
Yeah.
Well, you're not gonna put him in the back because it might be over by then. So you're gonna try not.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So you're probably gonna put him somewhere near the front part of the lineup. Well, guess what? Coincidentally happened. They both drew number 8.
Oh my God!
Okay? How did that happen? What are the odds of that happening? And the story's actually.
Are you like psychic or something?
Or what?
Are you psychic?
That was an easy call that was going to somehow actually happen. Tiger wanted a piece of way to get even, and there's a funny part. There's a funny part to the whole story.
You just knew. You just knew, huh? You knew regardless what was going to happen. You're like, he's one.
They were both on the putting green, getting ready to go, and I know Tiger didn't want to go first to the tee. He wanted YE to go first to hear the huge USA and Tiger chants, and YE wouldn't want to go, so they're both on the putting green. Nobody's going over to the first tee until like literally at the last second. And get on the first hole, and Tiger's energy is just, I mean, it's inspiring to watch just because that's the ultimate competitor. We all know. Yeah. I mean, it was cool. And I've been friends with Tiger for a long time. He's awesome. He's fantastic one-on-one and all that. But, I'm feeling awkward because, my guys happen to beat him in the summertime, and now they're competing again. But we get on the first hole, and Tiger snap hooks at par 5, makes par away, hits on the green in 2 putts. He's 1 up. They tie number 2. And And I probably should have said, when I got to the range that morning, you could tell why his gas tank was empty. We're leaving for Korea that night, which is where I want to finish the story with. We're going to Korea as a team after this is over. So third hole, Hawaii knocks it down the middle, 480 par 4 dog leg left through the big redwoods. Tiger blocks it to the right, and I happen to be on the right. I go over and look at his ball. The lie's okay, but he's 215, 220 yards from the green. Not an ugly lie in the rough, but not great. Well, he's either got to punch under some trees to about 60 yards from the green, or I'm not seeing he can do a whole lot of maneuver the ball. Well, I get behind him, galleries all around him. Somehow he hits a 5-iron, sky high, 20, 30 yards right, and hooks it all the way back and gets it on the green. I mean, it was a shot like only he can hit that shot. Like no one else is strong enough and good enough and talented enough to hit this shot. And it was jaw-dropping impressive. Well, why he hits it to the same 30 feet that Tiger was in 3 putts, the match went even, and then Tiger eventually won the match, maybe 3-2. So the match is over. We now go to San Francisco. It was out in San Francisco. We go out to the San Francisco airport. We're now going to get on airline to fly to Seoul. All-night flight when you fly that direction. So we wake up at 4:30 a.m. Tuesday morning in Seoul. And we had business class seats, which was fantastic. We all got some sleep. He brought his trainer.
Yeah.
He brought his trainer. He brought his caddy, great guy, and me. There's a few other people. He had a wife and 3 kids at the time. I mean, we're all there. The agents there, etc. When we went to get our bags, I've never had this happen before, but we had a private carousel just for ourselves. I don't know how that worked out, but it did. And it's now 4:45 in the morning. You're bleary eyed, not feeling good, and all that. And I see why you walk over to a suitcase and take out a sport coat. I see the agent walk over to a long box about this big with some clasp on it and a lock on it. Unclasps everything and pulls the Wanamaker trophy out. PGA let him bring it to Korea. Now it's now like 10-5. And we come out of the carousel and go around like a corner. And I don't know what it was like, say, when the Beatles came to America, but it had to be the equivalent. We came around this corner at 4:55 in the morning. I know what I felt like. I'm sure he felt the same way. He just got done playing some high-level golf. There was, I don't know, 20 or 30 like Good Morning Korea type cameras and anchormen and people waiting to interview, the hero returning home for the first time. And we walked out. If you've ever been to Seoul, the airport is literally 50 miles from downtown Seoul. It's one of the toughest places in the world from a traffic standpoint. Well, Wai and his family jumped in a car. We all got cars, and we had, for the whole week, it was just crazy treatment because they had special lanes just for us with the police escort.
Like presidential,
presidential lane. So where it would take you like an hour to go 15 miles. I mean, it took us 5 minutes, and we stayed at
I get used to this.
We stayed at the Palace Hotel, and just every day was a treat as he played a tournament over there. And it was just the hero returned home to his home country. I mean, it was cool. And to, just to see that up close, to watch how he handled it. One point, we had a breakfast one morning. He called the whole team back to his room, and it's probably the nicest hotel room I've ever been in my life. He pulled the Wanamaker trophy out and says, "I want to take a picture with each one of you guys." So I still have that picture framed, holding that up with him, and knowing how to small role.
So cool. It's like you're a trusted member, right? Like like you're in his I don't know if I say it, like his
camp.
Yeah, like you're in his world. Like you're like family, right? Like you're in that. You pass the barrier, and it's like you've been there for him to help him get to that level. Like that's crazy. Like it's not like you're just there to watch. You're like, oh, I know somebody. It's like, no, you're part of that.
Right.
Is that the best part about being a coach? Is when you see your players like excel, and you're like, you feel like you help be part of that.
I mean, broad answer, yes. It's fantastic when something you have personally seen works, and you're able to share it with somebody, and then they can do the same thing and see that it works also. So that's probably one of the more rewarding elements of it. And it sounds cool to tell a guy winning a major and cool stories, but I mean, it happens at, Mrs. Smith at the club championship with an 18 handicap and shooting a great score. I mean, it really doesn't matter, the glamour of who the student is, as much as you're just trying to help people get better. And whether that's at the 20 handicap level or at the tour level. It's very, very fun from a people standpoint, just to have a role in someone's life, to be that kind of moment of encouragement or moment of knowing the right thing to help them with.
Now you have a course on performance golf, right?
A lot of them,
You
yes.
have a lot of them. How did you like get to know them, and how did you start off
No,
with them?
performance
Doesn't your
golf.
son do some content too? I could have sworn I saw like some videos and saw
It's my
out of
nephew.
your son. It's some of the same last name as you, but I was like, who's this?
And for same first and last name. It's my brother's
Yeah, I was
son.
like, I'm
Yeah,
assuming it's your son, but I don't want to say that.
yeah, yeah. It's my nephew. No, he's lefty, so he's
My
gotten really good at
nephew.
he's demonstrating things righty. But Brixton Performance Golf reached out to me in 2018 or something, and for some reason, I'm really good on camera doing video tips and whatnot. I think I was the second coach they contacted, and we put together a whole training program with some really in-depth kind of meat to the golf swing and golf in
Yeah.
general. And it's encompasses all parts of the game. And we've done so many videos now that there's got to be 500 to 1,000 video on there of I don't know, 100 courses with different content and all that. Brixton Performance Golf do an unbelievable job of
Yeah, they're
getting
amazing.
that out there. They really are some of the best in the world at what they do. And I've just had a whole lot of fun getting to know them, being a part of their team, and watching what they do to create magic and also help golfers get better.
Yeah, that's how we met, and like it blows my mind. Like their content's amazing. Their products are like really, really, really good. Like
I was with them. I was with them at Pebble. I've seen some of the new products coming. They blew me
really?
away. They've got some of their guys are doing some things.
Like I have the
I don't know if I can talk about.
straightaway, and I have the straight stick, and I have the Easy 3, and I have the launch deck. That's what I got right now.
There's more coming.
That's what I heard. There's a driver I saw on their website, but then Brixton said they sold out already. So then I was like, oh, I want to get that. I want to check it out. I love stuff like that. I geek out on that stuff. So
there's more geek stuff coming.
Yeah, I could imagine. And like, yeah, I mean, I always tell people, like, if you want really good instruction, then just go to performance golf. Like, just get it, right? And the products work. So
they do.
I don't know. They just do. So then. So is that your son? I'm assuming. So like, what kind of that's your nephew?
Yeah, my brother's son.
No. Has the same name as you?
He's called Little Brian in the family, but he's like 6'3", so that's just what he's been from early on. Yeah.
Maybe they named him after you because they're like so impressed with you. They're like, oh yeah.
My brother's kind of my best friend, so
that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So okay, so if people want to find you, they can find you on your website.
Right? Moggacademy.com. My email's brian@moggacademy.com, and Instagram virtually every day, and Twitter some at Mogg Academy. I'll have a kind of a free video tip, and I love doing that, and got some good stuff out there.
You have a lot of videos. Like you have videos from like old school, like golf.com videos from like 10, 15 years ago. Like I've seen those. Like,
yeah, I did a ton of stuff on Golf Channel early on. So I know there's a lot out there too. There's probably on YouTube and other places. I've done so much over the years.
You like to teach it.
I just like to do it. I had an epiphany happen my very first year. This will be good advice for people considering doing things like this. But one of the early years in the Golf Channel, kind of mid to late 90s, I got asked to come on live. Kelly Tillman and I, her first live show and my first time on were both our first live shows. And back in the day, I used to have we had a fax machine. I don't know how many mornings I'd walk in and there's a fax from Richard, my buddy from Edmonton, Alberta. And Richard was going, hey, so-and-so was on Golf Channel last night. He mentioned this. I don't understand it. And I'd have to write a quick note out and fax it back to Richard. Richard was a very left brain person, so I had to always make it as simple as I could. And I figured out when you're doing live TV and or like what we're doing right now, anything kind of communication wise, I'm just talking to Richard in Edmonton. Make it so Richard gets it. Richard gets it. If Richard gets it, everybody's going to get it. Make it simple for Richard.
Yeah, it's like you have. Somebody told me once, is like, we do some training videos for something. And I was like, well, how do you do that? And he's like, imagine the dumbest person in the world and then go 2 levels lower than that. And that's how you have to explain it. Like, and I'm like, really? He's like, just trust me. Just like, because, and then it's nothing against people. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, just trust me. Like, don't assume anything. Just explain it so they can understand it.
I'm just, anytime I do anything media wise, I'm just talking to Richard in Edmonton.
You're faxing Richard in Edmonton.
Well, maybe faxing is dating myself, but I'm just talking to
No,
Richard
you're not. What happened to fax machines? My parents did have a fax machine. There's a bunch of them. Anyways, well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. You guys have to check out Brian's stuff. Like I said, he's everywhere. And he's helped a lot of players, normal players, tour players. You want to go visit him, you can visit him at his schools too, or you can watch his videos on Performance Golf or on wherever. So thank you for being on the show, and I will see you guys in the next video.